Minister, welcome to this little corner of Canada in Europe. We have a big relationship between Canada and Denmark. Amongst other things, we share a border, a maritime border of 3,000 kilometers. Long trading relationship, diplomatic relationship, security relationship, obviously through NATO, through your presidency, also of the Arctic Council, and our participation through the Nordic Baltic 8++.
What is essential at this moment is transparency and resolve. Carney made it clear that Greenland's future is to be decided solely by Greenland itself and by Denmark, not by Washington, not by the White House, and not by any external power. These were not merely symbolic words. They marked a clearly defined line, and it is precisely this boundary that is shaping Canada's response. Just a year ago, Trump had not even mentioned Greenland. At that time, he was speaking about Canada, floating ideas of annexation, referring to Canada as the 51st state, and treating the very concept of sovereignty as something that could be bargained away. Now, European leaders are witnessing firsthand what Canada recognized early on. Trump is repeatedly testing limits, probing to see which lines are truly defended. For that reason, Carney's tone in Europe has been anything but ceremonial. It has been cautious, defensive, and highly alert. That seriousness became even more apparent when Carney addressed questions related to the possible use of military force to annex Greenland. This response is not driven by emotion. It is grounded in legal principles, strategic calculation, and a firm, unequivocal stance.
I just want to pick up on what Christian was talking with you about a moment ago on Greenland. The Danish Prime Minister has said that any type of military force used to annex Greenland would be the end of NATO. Do you concur with that assessment?
Well, let me reiterate what I said to Mr. Noel, which is that the future of Greenland is a decision for Greenland and for Denmark exclusively. It's their decision. Secondly, from a NATO context, the way I would frame it is that the western flank of NATO, which would include Greenland, the Arctic, is, given the evolving threat environment, is an area that we as NATO, Canada obviously importantly, given our geography, need to invest more in. This is a point that we've been making in recent years and since I became Prime Minister that we've really stressed. And with our buildup that's just beginning of our military capabilities, we are making heavy investments in the Arctic. We'll be working with our Nordic partners. We'll be working through NATO. This is one of the issues I'll be discussing with the Secretary General as part of an ongoing discussion with him around this to further advance it.
Stephen Miller, who is a senior advisor to President Trump, has refused to rule out military force in the annexation of Greenland. Does that trouble you?
Well, I didn't see the specific comments that Mr. Miller may have made. Look, I'll take a step back. We're partners in NATO. It is a mutual defense alliance. We can provide that security. And when we look at a couple basic, there's basic principles here, which is self-determination of nations, sovereignty, territorial integrity.
Mr. Carney has anchored Canada's position in core principles that are not subject to change: the right to self-determination, national sovereignty, and territorial integrity. This is not simply a reaction to Trump. It is also a message to everyone who is watching. Annexation by force will not be accepted, will not be legitimized, and cannot be justified in any form. As the exchanges continued, Carney broadened the frame of the issue. Greenland is not solely a Danish matter. It is part of NATO's western flank, and it is precisely for that reason that Greenland becomes a shared responsibility of the entire alliance.
With regards to Venezuela and Greenland, what is Canada's position? You're going to meet your Danish counterpart. Do you think that military action in Greenland would signify the end of NATO? Answer. With regards to the future of Greenland, this will be a decision for the people of Greenland and Denmark. Only them, Greenland and Denmark. Secondly, with regards to the role of NATO, for a long time now, And during my period as Prime Minister, Canada's position has been that we need to invest in Arctic security. The Canadian Arctic, the Arctic next to Greenland, and also the Nordic space. We are making progress within NATO, but we have to do more. We have to do more, and I will have a discussion this afternoon with the Secretary General of NATO, Mr. Rutte, with regards to this.
At this very moment, Canada's concerns have become impossible to conceal. The Arctic is no longer a distant, tranquil space at the edge of the map. It has become a strategic front line, and it is precisely Trump's rhetoric that has accelerated this shift. The symbolic significance here is substantial. Carney did not invoke NATO as an abstract concept. He appeared alongside the alliance's leadership, sending a clear message about Canada's position and role in this new reality.
It's a great pleasure to welcome the Secretary General of NATO. He's doing, and I'm going to add a point, amazing work at a critical time. From getting us all to step up and have resources for not just today, but in the medium term for the new threat environment, but also bringing that unique expertise and diplomacy and political skill that's helping to navigate incredible progress that has been made towards a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. There's more to be done, but at the core of it is the need for security guarantees, what we'll be discussing today, and in that regard, drawing on the expertise of NATO, the approaches of NATO, and your personal expertise in diplomacy. So thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much, cher Mark. Merci beaucoup. And let me say that I really admire what Canada is doing. The way you are supporting Ukraine recently with making available extra and highly necessary interceptors to defend Ukrainian cities and critical infrastructure against Russian attacks. You are one of the main contributors to this Pearl program. Hundreds of millions of Canadian dollars, euros, whatever way we count it, it is really a huge amount of money you are investing in making.
That image alone was enough to send a clear message. Canada is not acting alone. Canada is coordinating deliberately and in step with its partners. And Canada is anchoring itself within collective security structures, rather than pursuing unilateral power politics. When Carney spoke of a new threat environment, this was precisely the point he sought to underscore. The final moment that left a strong impression came when Mark Carney turned to the issue of energy. This too is where his message bore a distinctly Canadian imprint. Rather than allowing Trump's actions in Venezuela to be framed as an answer to the global energy challenge, Carney completely reversed the argument. He stated unequivocally that Canada does not need permission, does not need justification, and does not need to measure itself against anyone in order to stand on its own.
President Trump has said one of the key reasons that he went into Venezuela was to get the oil out. Do you think this will impact the Canadian oil sector, and does that increase the need, in your estimation, to have a pipeline to the northwest coast of BC?
Well, I'll say a couple of things. One is that, from our perspective, the removal of an illegitimate, corrupt, repressive government or leader, Mr. Maduro, is welcome news. It creates the possibility for democratic transition in Venezuela. We very much support that. We're available to support that, and we urge that to happen in a peaceful transition. And that's the best prospect for greater prosperity for the Venezuelan people and to respect the will of the Venezuelan people. Now, a functioning, not corrupt Venezuelan economy will produce more oil. It'll be better for the Venezuelan people. It'll be more stable for the Western Hemisphere. That's all a good thing. Canadian oil, Canadian energy, but I'll speak because you asked specifically about Canadian oil. It's been our view, and we're working towards this, that Canadian oil will be competitive because it is low risk, clearly low risk, low cost, the marginal costs. There's been huge progress in getting down the cost. and low carbon, which is what the Pathways project, carbon capture, will bring. And that makes Canadian oil competitive for the medium and long term. So we welcome the prospect of peace, a peaceful transition, democratic Venezuela. We welcome the prospect of greater prosperity in Venezuela, but we also see the competitiveness of Canadian oil, and we're investing, or we're putting in place measures so that that's going to happen. And in that context, a pipeline and exports to Asia. We've got competitive product, and we'd be diversifying our markets, and that's one of the reasons why we signed the comprehensive MOU with Alberta. So we'll be working towards that.
Mr. Carney acknowledged that Venezuela's oil sector needs to be developed in a healthy manner, and that stability and economic growth bring shared benefits to all parties. At the same time, however, he emphasized another point that is no less clear. Canadian oil is already widely consumed across the globe. This supply is trusted by markets, highly stable, and produced within a transparent legal framework. Carney's argument was delivered with restraint, yet carried considerable weight. Trump's efforts to reshape energy politics through pressure and coercion do not weaken Canada's position. On the contrary, they make that position more solid. As instability increases in many other regions, Canada's energy therefore becomes more valuable, not less attractive. This is not a boastful claim, it is confidence grounded in reality. Carney is not merely defending Canada's resources, he is defending Canada's role, credibility, and influence in an increasingly unpredictable world. And at that moment, the message being sent was unmistakably clear. Canada will not be sidelined, Canada will not be weakened, and Canada will not be overshadowed by chaos elsewhere. Mark Carney's meetings in Europe were not about image-making, they were preventive in nature. Canada understands one fundamental truth. If the world responds to Trump in a fragmented way, country by country, then every country becomes vulnerable. But if democracies act together, boundaries can be upheld. Greenland is the first test. Europe is the place where forces are being consolidated, and Canada is no longer standing by to see what happens next. Because once threats of annexation become normalized, no country will be too distant, too friendly, or too safe. And Canada understands that better than anyone. This is Canada.